Okay, great. Thank you. I hope you can see the screen. This is the session on collective mapping of needs and citizen-led solutions. Some of you might have heard this before, others are new to it. So I'll run through the reason why we're doing this. Now, this is an initiative by socialcollab.sg, but I'm also a research fellow in the Institute of Policy Studies, and therefore it's also been it's a side project of what I do in my official work, but this initiative really is a community-led initiative, and it's not an IPS thing. But to the extent that there are IPS relevant projects, then I will, it becomes part of, sorry, I have to keep track of who is trying to get in at the same time. So I'm sorry if the presentation's a bit choppy at the same time. Okay, so the problem as we're trying to resolve is this. Understanding needs, and now these are the preliminary steps before solutions, right? You need to understand the needs, map out existing resources, determine gaps, reasons why they exist. However, there tends to be fragmentation of knowledge, right? We rely on cognitive shortcuts or authority figures, either experts or researchers or the leaders of the nonprofit sector will make some decisions. However, perspectives on social issues are too diverse and developments too dynamic for any single agency to properly grasp. And so who can contribute to knowledge? We tend to rely on systems, leaders, or experts, whether it's experts in policy, policymakers, academics, or professionals. And we tend to regard clients, caregivers, citizens as merely data. So the question is, can we regard them as experts of their own lives? I need to animate, sorry. And so this is what we did. We think everyone can contribute and that there shouldn't be any group that has monopoly over knowledge about social issues anyway. And this is a community developer. He says, we learn when we respect the dignity of the people, that they cannot be denied the elementary right to participate fully in the solutions to their own problems. So we asked the question, what if everyone contributes, right? The seed of the idea started when I was a researcher working in the National Council of Social Service, and we did an end-of-life project. And it was a great example of a kind of very participatory process whereby the services team worked with the research team, and then they opened doors to palliative care workers, social workers, and we went down to interview them and discussed end-of-life needs and gaps in the sector. And so then we had compiled lots of resources, literature reviews, scans of this program or that program. We had a report, we have a kind of a catalog of resources, and we thought, okay, let's send this to this professor in NUS who's an expert in end-of-life care. And so we sent it off, and the professor said, oh, I'm so busy, I'm not sure if I can help you at all, but I'll take a quick look. And through a quick look, she said, oh, this is interesting, can you send this to me? There's something there that's missing that you can add. And oh, look, by the way, there's a spelling mistake. And instead of feeling embarrassed by the spelling mistake, I had an epiphany. The epiphany was that one person's quick views had contributed and improved the knowledge base. What if the larger palliative care sector had done that? And so that was how we thought, the report was done, but if we continue the conversation, perhaps there would be a wisdom of crowds if more people contributed to this. So that's one possibility, that crowds are wise. But the other possibility is that people in large groups make terrible decisions, and so we are banking on the former, which is why we did this. There's been some background study of this kind of processes, how technology has enabled decentralized collaborations. Claire Shirky is a tech journalist and scholar. He points out that technology has made it easier for groups to self-assemble and for individuals to contribute to group effort without requiring formal management and the costs of its attendant overheads. And so these tools have radically altered the old limits on size, sophistication, and scope of unsupervised efforts. So these things are unsupervised efforts as what we're trying to do, right? We're trying to do open collaboration. The examples is previously, if you wanted to publish your art or photos, you would gather then share them. Now you share them together, right? Maybe you take photos of Chingay procession and you hashtag them, and then now you go to Flickr and search for Chingay, you find such photos. Same thing with Wikipedia compared to encyclopedias or compared to research, which is you filter first, you do years of research, you come up with a paper, the paper goes to an editor and a peer review process, you filter it, you refine it, and then you publish it. Wikipedia turns it the other way around, right? You publish first and then you filter later. So this is citizen participation needs assessment. Needs assessments can be done very expert driven. It can also be more consultative or more participatory. You can include the voices of the people that you are studying. What I feel that the next phase of this is really open collaboration. And so what is open collaboration? These are some examples: Wikipedia, as I mentioned, and the open source movement for software development. So our answer to the question of who should contribute is basically all can contribute, right? What we have now, I mean, I had an RA who previously said, look at all your pages on migrant workers, etc. I don't know anything about it, but it's okay. I will check spelling mistake for you. I will do some formatting for you. And even then, that's good enough. That's a contribution. If you're no expert on some particular issue, but you're a caregiver or a client, and you've gone through some programs and you feel that the wait list is too long, or you have some gripe or complaint, your views matter. So what we have now are three types of pages. There are pages on social causes, right? Disability, end of life, youth at risk as offenders. There are pages also on community assets. So these are like the community artists, social enterprises, tech for good, service learning officers. Now, the way I describe this is a bad way, but the first category are the people with the problems, and the second category are the people with the solutions. That's not quite the way it is, but when I describe it this way, people wrap their minds around it, right? There are problems, there are solutions, there are people who can solve problems, but it is not technically accurate because people with disabilities have their own strengths and assets. The so-called community assets have their own needs. For example, the community artists, they are considered to be less professional and produce lower quality work than the professional artists, so to speak, and they are not mobilized, etc. So each group has their own needs. But that's one way you can think about it. The reason why we have three types of pages. The third type of pages are the least developed ones. These are locality-based mapping, where the other pages are based on all sorts of issues. Some people say, I work in Lengkok Bahru and there are youths there, there are seniors there, and I work with lots of different organizations there. Is there a way to map out the issues within that locality as well as the organizations and groups there? Because that's going to be useful to me. And so we say, great, we'll try. But I don't necessarily think that the wiki platform is a good way of doing this, but we always try and see how things work. So I'm going to do a demo now. These are the pages. This is if you just type socialcollab.sg, it brings you to our website, which is a very sparse website. I set this up and don't have time to do anything about it, but that's not the place. You click on citizen mapping, and once you click on citizen mapping, it brings you to this, which is the wiki platform itself, and that's where all the action is. The wiki page, at the top, you can see the three categories: social causes, animals, children, development, ex-offenders, community assets, which are games for good cooperatives. Many of these pages are just test pages. Some of them are owned by an actual community or group where they will populate and use the page. Some are just demonstration pages waiting for people to click it on. And localities. There's previously, I think Xing Yan, I don't know if she's here, she worked in Lengkok Bahru and she said she wanted to map it out. So there's some stuff here. There is Amos from Amakio FSC who wanted to work out the Northeast District. And so he put some stuff here. And then a long time ago, somebody said, oh, I want to map out Whampoa, but they didn't do anything. So I created a test page and it just says, no, it's not Whampoa. I created a test page on Whampoa has nothing. McPherson has nothing. McPherson has this whole thing statement. Hello, Sarah and Jason, who never did anything with it. And that's fine. We just kind of create pages for whoever wants to do something. I'll show you the disability page, because the disability page actually has is an example of the most developed one because IPS hosts a disability community network, and we have roundtables, and we discuss the issues, and we populate the page, and we've since written a landscape report which is circulating to get feedback on. So this is the once pages become populated, they also grow, and then we started to create sub pages. So an average page looks like this. There's an overview, what are key stats and figures, and then there's a map of the key areas. And so we try to put in all the issues in a kind of simple theory of change, so that if you land on the disability page and you just care about employment, you click on the employment button, it brings you to specifically the disability employment page, which itself will have a mini map here. So this mini map within employment tells you that employers need to understand capabilities, need to be willing to hire, then they are matched. So there are two key thrusts, right? They need to be willing to hire, the people with disabilities need to be work ready, then they are matched, then they secure jobs. And if you click on the specific part of it, it brings you to the specific section in that page. So I click on employers, and people with disabilities needs to be matched. And here are all the programs that do this work, the performance function, BizLink, ABLE, ARC, etc. These are the job placement programs. So this is the examples like this are the easiest to do, right? You find a program, or you find some newspaper article about service or intervention, you can just plonk it in. So that's an example of the page. There are, of course, other pages. There are tons of, the mental health page is relatively well populated, even though there's no community behind it, just because there were some people who care about this quite a bit, and we just over time clean it up a little bit. So it has the same look and feel. It also has a pretty decent overview map, which you can click on, and it brings you to that. This one is only one page, so it just brings you to the specific segment. I'll show you the disability page also has the disability page is supported by a network. So we also put our network page up here. You know, this is the vision, the mission, purpose, how the network will be run, and the network agenda. So everything, all the meetings that we had, we put up here, even photographs if you like, all the things that were discussed, who came and presented what. So we created a separate wiki page just for networking purposes. So if you have a community network, interest group, or COP, yeah, you can also use the wiki as a cheap and easy way to share information and to organize and coordinate your meetings. And of course, we have a community development page. This one is quite new, so there isn't a lot of stuff. It's decent, but this, of course, is supported by the quite informal community development network, which is behind the community forum that you're attending now. So we have, you can check it out if you want. And for example, we've had meetups. The first meetup was in Credit Suisse. All these shabbily dressed community workers, social worker type swarmed into the Credit Suisse office, and people wondered why we were there, because they were nice enough just to sponsor the venue. And that's when we discussed, should we do this network? What will we do about it? Picked up to until now, and everyone's it's kind of nice because different organizations and groups just kind of hosted, and we just kind of traveled to each other's homes, and they provided F&B, and we found out about what one another was doing. Until COVID happened, then we had one on Zoom, and then we decided, okay, let's do community forum in November, which is this. So this is an example of how what Clay Shirky calls, you can do quite a lot with very little overheads through kind of decentralized work. But I'll show you maybe an example of a community asset, social enterprises, right? People like social enterprises. There was a group populating this, and so from nothing, now you have a sense of, okay, these are the key issues social enterprises have to face. They have to attract. First, you have to attract the entrepreneurs. You have to create a relevant team, need resources to start up, etc., etc. If you click on those things, it brings you to the specific page, the specific segment, and it tells you these are the existing programs that do these things. Okay, so that's the see. That's an example. Does anybody want to ask any clarifying questions about the platform at this point? We can come back to this if anyone has clarifying questions. So that's the platform. So I've done a demo. I've showed you the pages. Okay, I guess I haven't shown you the report that we wrote as a result of the disability page. Okay, now you're gonna see my folder, which is a mess. Disability page, latest report, version 2. Now we thought that the platform was going to be, it's a wiki. So and some people prefer the traditional report. So we thought every year we'll write a landscape report of the disability sector and we put it down here. And this is a draft of it. Singapore disability landscape, a collective map of needs and assets. And then there's an executive summary, which we note. This is a tentative report of unfinished work. And all throughout this report, we put down parts whereby there are information gaps, etc., etc. And we are circulating it to the disability community to get their inputs first before they decide what they want to do with this. Okay, so I'll come back to that in a while. Now what? This was Community Forum 2018, which was done by IPS, and to stay true to the spirit of the very grandiose inaugural session where I said this is a forum about the community, for the community, by the community, we decided to take it seriously, and therefore it is no longer an IPS thing. It is done by a loose coalition of different groups and organizations who all wanted to present something. You wouldn't know this, but Gerard E was the keynote, and he's in shorts as he's seated up there. How did we start Social Collab? There was a first informal call to action in 2016, and small teams formed. People wanted to do, ex-offenders, they wanted to do youth at risk, etc. And then there was informal backbone support, the people who had to do the knowledge architecture, the IT part of it. Now, in that first call to action, all the little interest groups died because they're VWs, right? And you have other priorities that are coming to contribute to a platform or to the commons, which is not your KPI. And it's very hard to sustain that, except for the disability one, which had the DPA, the Disabled People's Association, was very on board in, and so they were our co-organizers and they mobilized people, and so we had a session to discuss, should we do this, and people agreed, and so we did it. That's why the disability one continued to sustain that interest. Our tech partner back then was the Institute of High Performance Computing, which has since spun off into Trampoline, which is providing tech solutions for the social sector. And they continue to provide free tech support. There's a guy that I call if I need to know how to do tables or insert pictures, and he tells me if I need new functions, he tells us. I ask him and he tells us whether it's possible. And they continue to pay for the domain and for the whole platform to be on the server for free. But I need to find some money for them soon because it feels terrible to do this, to leash on them. In the early days, we used the kind of plug and play wiki platform. I paid like $20 a year and used it, but its functionality was very bad. So we migrated to a new Wikimedia platform. And this is the same software as Wikipedia. So it has the same look and feel, which I think everybody liked, because if you use Wikipedia, you have you kind of are familiar with how it looks. It looks quite similar. We've done wikithons, which is like a half-a-day thing where people come and we do a demo and say, fill in the pages. Sometimes we say, fill in anything you want. Sometimes we say, we just want you to fill in the page on this issue. And they said for half a day, we gave them vouchers and they did it. A different group did a wiki challenge for over 6 months. That one was led by NUS students who structured and designed the whole thing. There was a Republic Poly lecturer who also got her students to populate the pages on youth at risk as part of their coursework. And so that was great. We didn't have to show up. She did the demo, she explained everything, and they did the work. And so these are the things that happen around this platform. It is the community networks, it's the roundtables, populated pages, and landscape reports. We continue to do ongoing experiments. So for the disability report, we thought, let's do peer-to-peer because it's going to be so hard to get people's views. If you send a document around and they do track changes to come back to you, if you send it to 100 people, you got 100 different things to look at. So we thought, okay, let's try this peer-to-peer approach. Basically, it's multi-level marketing without the without the insidious intent to benefit from it, right? By leeching off your friends. So we said, do you have 1 hour of your time and do you have 2 friends? So we told people, okay, human, you just give me 1 hour of your time within this week. Look at the disability report, put down all your feedback. It goes into a Google form. Then after you do that, find 2 other people who you know personally, right? It's peer-to-peer. Don't find experts, don't find professionals. Just 2 people you know who really care about this. Ask them to do the same and ask them to find 2 other people. Check in with them after a week. And once you check in with them, your job is done. You fill in a feedback form and that's it. And so we'll see how it goes. It's still going on. We're hoping that this is an exponential way of mass collaboration, getting people to collaborate in a massive way rather than in a centralized way. These are some benefits of open collaboration for needs assessment. If you look at centrally led needs assessments or reports, there are all sorts of agencies that will study the elder care sector or end-of-life sector. They produce reports, they do surveys. All these centrally led efforts, once the report is out, it's immediately dead because the next week there is a new service or new intervention or something. So it's a snapshot. It's complete in itself, but when you consider the report in the larger scheme of things, it is actually a fragmented view, right? If you look at the wiki, it is live and constantly updated. At least that's the ideal. Of course, it's not so live and not so constantly updated as everyone would like it to be. There is coherent accumulation, and so we seek clarity instead of arbitrary completion. So even the reports, the landscape report that we write, we say this is tentative, it's not complete. And it's very different when, writing research reports is my trade, right? So I understand how it works, right? If you or your organization is writing a report, then your reputation and your organization's reputation at stake because ownership is proprietary, right? This is an IPS report, this is an NCSS report. Whereas this wiki, this social collab thing, it's public. Nobody owns the information there, therefore everybody owns it. And growth of the knowledge of a report is, if the Land Center for Social Innovation does something and they find time again in 2 years' time to update the information, there's some kind of incremental gain. Whereas if everybody contributes to the knowledge base, you can have exponential growth. But what I really liked about it is this realization that for centrally led projects, it was always people were trying to figure out the best agency to do the work. If you're a policymaker and you have different agencies and NGOs, you're always trying to find the best agency to do the work because you want to avoid duplication or role delineation, right? It's like you treat the whole sector as your kind of extension and you say, okay, you guys are the leaders of this sector, you take charge of this and other people do that. And I can assure you that there's always some tension because some agency comes up with this report and then other agencies say, hey, but that's our specialization. We ought to know this stuff. Why are they doing this? So there's turf inevitably. And there's also defensiveness. You will never be able to have this comprehensive, authoritative oversight on all issues that matter, but you will want to sound like you do because your reputation is at stake, right? In an open collaboration model, well, all can contribute. You don't have to be an expert, and the community helps one another. It is highly democratized. You are a caregiver, you have some experience, you want to say something, you can. And the best part about this is our absolute humility. So, which is why, if we have a spelling mistake, I'm not embarrassed. If we have a report that is incomplete, we are not embarrassed, and we are highly transparent about ignorance. So we will say, this is all that we found. If you can come and tell us our mistakes and what we missed out, we will be so happy because then suddenly the collective knowledge base would have been improved. And so I've had people work with us and they might be undergrads and they say, wow, this is such a different way of doing research because in school, when you write a research report, there's a particular way of writing it, right? And you always want to demonstrate credibility and all that. Whereas here, somehow it is quite freeing. I feel the freedom myself because doing research work is hard work. And you basically, if you're doing it this way, you are collaborating with a larger collective, which means you don't need to know everything. You don't need to feel the burden on your singular shoulders to find out everything, right? You know what you know, and other people can tell you the stuff that you don't know, and that's great. Let's see. So our larger vision really is, it's not just this, right? It's not just this knowledge project. I think the third sector at large is weak in Singapore. Most nonprofits have cultivated this vertical relationship with their funders and their ministry, but they have not cultivated horizontal ties with their peers. And so this is an example of what we want to do. And often we will hear, and this is an actual example, Southeast CDC, right? So Southeast CDC, there's have lots of partners, VWOs and schools and change makers, funders, all sorts, volunteers who work in that area. And then they come to Southeast CDC and say, you guys are the ones that should know everything, right? So where can we get funding? Where can we source for volunteers? Who are the organizations and community groups in our neighborhood we can work with? And so they ask them, why don't you come up with a central, they always want you to come up with a centralized platform, right? So that we know. Just as SG Enable has been tasked to come out with a centralized platform on everything relevant to the disability sector, because they've been they're set up as an apex organization. All things related to disability they should know, and so it works well. It works well for SG Enable because they are resourced, right? It's their mandate and their resource, and they can do this. But if there's no resource, you will slowly realize that if you're tasked to be the central coordinator for such things, that you will become the bottleneck very quickly. Because you are doing things for everybody else. So we feel that the solution is not that you do it for everybody, but that if Southeast CDC can get everyone on board and contribute to a platform where everyone's contributions add up, well, we think that that's the more sustainable solution. So decentralized collaborations instead of central coordination. And we also, we don't just want to contribute to knowledge commons, we also want citizen-led solutions informed by collective mapping. And so there's this movement towards the discipline network. We're trying to move towards solutioning mode. We've talked about problems for a year over. Now we can discuss what we want to do about it. And I'll give you two examples of that. Some problems need to dive deeper. So for example, quota hiring. Some people like quota hiring. Some people don't. Government don't like quota hiring, and they've said as much. Some advocacy groups and some caregivers say they like it. And so we had a call out. We said, who wants to start a quota hiring interest group? And so some people said yes, and the magic of that group is that the people who joined that group say were pro-quota, anti-quota, and people who didn't know and just wanted to find out more. And through cycles and generations of interns and RAs, we now have a very decent Excel worksheet comparing the employment rates and quota systems across different countries, and whether there are penalties for employers who don't meet their quota, etc., etc. And that's just sitting there. And as I mentioned, I'm the bottleneck. We are the bottleneck because we are the conveners, and we didn't move on this, so nothing moved. But if we decentralize this, right, people who want to kind of work on this and do more with it can. This needs a lot more work because it is macro policy or even implicates legislation. So if you wanted to come up with, let's say, a policy advocacy piece, right, write a policy brief, or maybe some version of quota can work in Singapore, then you need to go deeper. And this is an example of how you can go deeper. Other problems don't require you to deep dive into the problem. So we kind of know that the community inclusion is the last frontier for people with disabilities, right? So there's all sorts of services for early intervention, education, employment, but people don't feel socially included. And so then there was an idea for an inclusive neighborhood initiative to get the people with disabilities and the caregivers that live in their neighborhood to be accommodated and create access for them to not just the facilities, but the community there, and for them also to contribute back. So for that idea, don't need to go very deep, but there's already formed a kind of an informal, semi-formal group to do it. SG Enable and AWA keen to implement it, and IPS is participating to support the research and the evaluation of it. And so those are the things that can come out of the platform. Okay, at this point, since there are some questions, I'll address. No, let me finish, then I'll address them. So this is Clay Shirky's book. I will point you to the subtitle, The Power of Organizing Without Organizations. Even the term organization, when we say organization, it refers to a hierarchical bureaucratic organization, right? But there are other forms of organizing, and networks are an example of that. Plus, revolution doesn't happen when it's not about the tech. What I've learned is that this is very true. This is not about the tech. It's not about the wiki platform, because there are other ways to do this. Revolution doesn't happen when society adopts new technology. It happens when society adopts new behaviors. And the new behavior here is the third sector collaborating with one another, right? And that's new, and collaborating without the need for central coordination, but collaborating in a decentralized way. So we're trying to build and innovate on the social infrastructure. We support, sometimes lead or facilitate networks. We try to seed or catalyze interest groups or communities of practice or community action groups. So the difference between a community network and community interest group is the community network tends to be a broad-based issue. Community network is, let's say, disability community network, community development network, and interest group is very specific, right? Maybe you want just to figure out quota hiring. A community of practice is made up of people who have who practice a particular skill set. So earlier today, there was a theory of change workshop done by Just Cause, and these are people who facilitate theory of change. And after the session in the morning, they said, let's form a community of practice, and people said, great, let's do it. So there could be a new community of practice here made up by people who do theory of change. And an action group is kind of different. There are people who, so I mentioned the inclusive neighborhood action group. There are others who want to create community currencies. Time banks are an example of community currency. So we are trying to help build or innovate on this social infrastructure. And this is I really like this. It says that the small group is a unit of transformation, right? You don't need always leaders in top positions, but just regular people and citizens willing to pay the economic and emotional price that create something new requires. And so you don't need to be part of a big, powerful, well-resourced group. If you find each other, find an interest group or action group, you can do something quite meaningful. Okay, so I'll kind of end there and address some questions first. Do you plan to check for expired or outdated information? Yeah, that's the same question that Wikipedia deals with. So Wikipedia has a lot of they have an editorial army and very highly sophisticated and well thought out editorial policies. We plan to slowly develop our editorial policies as we go along, try to solve problems as we go along. So the thing is, nobody's checking for the information unless there's a community behind it. So because we are looking at the disability pages, so we will check that, but we're not looking at the other pages necessarily. What kind of, okay, this was a direct message to me, but I'll answer it anyway. What is the third sector? The third sector is just like a different term for, so it's the people, public, private sector, right? It is basically the non-profit sector, as you call it. Or okay, so this is interesting, right? Because if you say it's the non-profit sector, I don't quite like the term because you are identifying the sector in terms of we are not we're not private sector, we're not businesses, right? We're non-profit. It's as if your identity is defined negatively only. Some people call them the non-government NGOs, right? That's also a term I don't quite like. You can call it civil society, but the people in UK call it third sector. You know, I don't have a very good term for it. Okay, we'll pause now for questions. Anybody? What's gonna happen next after questions is if people are keen to be part of this, I'll run through an account of how you can consider collaborating with the platform or with the groups that are connected to the platform.
Dr. Justin?
Hi.
I just want to ask, like, this whole endeavor with the social collab, right? Like, we are driving towards this. I mean, in 2012, I think, like, IPS did a scenarios planning kind of exercise where one of the scenarios is actually the wikicity.sg. And then I feel that social collab is actually one of the initiatives that would drive our country towards that kind of direction. So some of the questions that I have is the same questions that they raised, like, how, is it politically sustainable, and, how we make use of this kind of social groups to encourage innovation, because there's no competition per se, like in terms of information consolidation and what we know and what we do not know. Yeah.
The question is, how sustainable is it sustainable? Yeah, that's something I'm struggling with. Okay, so I've kind of learned a few things as I go along. When we started the disability network, it was always, you do this, right, and then the disability sector will take over. After you do this for a year or two, and you demonstrate that actually the costs of convening are so low, and especially now after COVID, you can just do it on Zoom, right? You don't even have to offer your venue or cater for food and beverage for people to turn up. And then what I realized was that my first target was, okay, the VWs, the non-profits, the social service agencies, they should be the ones to take on ownership of the community network. And then, maybe Minds can facilitate next year, and then SPD do the year after. I think what we quickly realized is that it's very hard to get service providers to want to do this. It's not their main concern. They're happy to come, they're happy to share, but this is above and beyond, right? This is above and beyond what they're set out to do. So unless a large VW has a research or advocacy arm that specifically does this, those that focus on service provision will find it very hard to want to contribute to the commons at your own expense. And then I thought, okay, maybe then it's the caregivers group, and they're very highly motivated, well-connected caregivers group who don't just know one issue. If you're a service provider, maybe you might know the employment programs because you just do that. But these caregiver groups know everything, right? And if some of the groups are like thousands of people all on WhatsApp, and they can send surveys out to their own members. And so that's a possibility. But what I've come to realize is that, which is the direction forward, is that this should be a student-led or youth-led movement, because students love this way of working, especially students, the undergrads or the poly students, right, who are studying these issues in school anyway, and they're trying to figure it out, trying to piece together information just to have an understanding, have a grasp of what's going on in this sector or that sector. They are the ones most motivated, and they are the ones that often I don't have to engage. They somehow come to look for me. So I realized that maybe that's the way to go, which is why one of the discussions we're going to have later on tonight is how do we transit into a student-led initiative. And it was very clear that this shouldn't be an IPS initiative, which is why it's social collab. It's not some stupid IPS thing. Because if it's IPS, then the SMU professor will not come and contribute to your platform.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Understand. Thank you.
Yeah. There was some questions. Are there information regarding social issues that women face, housewives, female caregivers? So there's a women page, but it's not populated. There's a yeah. So once the thing about this is if there's a group or just an individual interested to populate something, right? All you need to do is to get a user ID from me. I will generate a randomized password to you. Just give me the user ID of your preference and an email. You will get a randomized password, and then you can go and create new pages and populate those pages. You can, of course, come and vandalize the pages, but please don't. But it's, like with Wikipedia, we can always revert back to saved positions. So a lot of the, I just attended another of the sessions in a com forum, and it was on sex workers. It covered sex workers, and I thought, this is great, the stuff they're talking about. So I immediately created a sex worker page, and I think it would be great if some student or volunteer would chat with Vanessa from Project X or Project T, and then they could start populating. This is the situation that sex workers face, trafficking, etc., etc. What are the programs or services? Do I face any complications with working completely online? Yes, and actually this is not meant to be a completely online platform because it doesn't stop anyone from actually meeting face to face. And in fact, the Disability Network has met face to face previously. Is there any way we can join or apply to join? Yeah, yes, just email me. And you can say what you want to do. Okay, I'll cover that in a short while. Just kind of answer other questions related to the platform itself. What kind of professionals would use the Social Collab the most? I think at this point, because the language is quite, I've heard feedback is quite clinical, so technical, right? Because this is terminology that policymakers and practitioners and professionals use. And so we think, and actually it is, if you're an administrator, program administrator, social worker, case worker, community worker, policymaker, it serves your needs the best. If you are, let's say, a client or a caregiver looking to navigate the system, there are people who write blogs to teach you how to do that. You can join a support group and they tell you, okay, once your kid gets diagnosed, this is what happens, this is what happens. If your husband is incarcerated, what do you expect? There are different blogs, and people with autism write blogs about these things. So those, you should go to those platforms if you're looking to just access services. This one is written as a kind of a collective mapping of the needs and the gaps. So it is more inclined towards professionals and researchers and practitioners, but we are hoping to make it more readable in the sense that we want to consider introducing case vignettes, because it's very abstract, even if you say like these are job placement programs, but somebody who has actually done the job placement programs who write an experience of it, right? I went to this and the job coach did this and whatever, to get a kind of fuller understanding of it. So we do want to kind of experiment with things like that. By youth and student-led, are you looking at only uni students or ambition to eventually expand to pre-tertiary institutes? Okay, so actually all these things, right? The Social Collab is not me. In fact, I keep hoping that the Social Collab is you and whoever wants to be part of it. So if you decide to be part of it, then there will be you can join the core team, and the core team together with other partners and collaborators will decide. Because, and what we want to do is we want to make it a kind of a decentralized and democratically governed initiative. So definitely, if you're interested to do or push it in a certain direction, right, join, and then you can push it. Want to understand more about what challenges have you experienced when setting up this or achieving your vision for the platform? I think the key challenge is the conveners bottleneck. So if you run the Disability Network, if you're behind the platform, everything goes to you and you can't drive everything, which is why I really think it's time now to decentralize it. You not just have a team who will make democratic decisions about certain things, but that the teams or the functions or the circles can be autonomously run. So if you're part of the collab and you're supposed to do something, no need to ask for permission. You want to do your social media this way or that way, up to you. And so I think that's the way to go. If everything has to ask me or a small group of people for vision and direction, I don't think it will work very well. And it goes against the principle of open collaboration, which is it shouldn't be a small group of people making decisions for everyone else. Are socio-religious issues allowed on the platform? Yes. People have often asked, I want to put stuff on LGBT, can or not? You can. So what we want to do is to at least, so it is not the, okay, if this platform was NUS, right, and it's owned by some agency, the agency will have to do all the due diligence checking and everything. But because this is a collective platform, the checking and verifying will also be collective. And so it would be great if potentially problematic information can be policed by the community rather than a central editorial team. I think that would be the ideal. Of course, as and when things pop up that make it problematic, I think we're trying to figure out, take it a step at a time. And over time, if there's a core team working behind the scenes, we will think carefully about all these possible issues. It's a startup phase, right? So we haven't thought about everything. We haven't figured everything out. And the philosophy now is, if a problem comes up, now we will address it as best as we can together with everyone, consulting everyone. So hopefully that will be good enough for now. And then once we have some mind space and bandwidth to think further down the line, then we will. Can we use Social Collab to host a COP? Yes, by all means, for asset-based community. I just created a page for the Theory of Change COP that was discussed this morning. You can create a page in like 2 minutes. There's even a template, and I can do it for you if you want. Okay. So I think actually the platform is quite good for small groups who don't want to set up their own website, who don't want to. And actually we use all sorts of free things. We use Google Groups, we use blogs, WordPress, etc., etc. And we can also share ideas on if you wanted to facilitate your own COP or community network or interest groups or action groups, how to do it cheaply and with little overheads, and how to sustain it by decentralizing your work so that you don't become the central coordinator for it. Okay, so now on to if you wanted to play ball with us, what you can do. Share screen. So this is the Social Collab landing page, and I've decided, okay, every time somebody, and many of you who are in this meeting today are people who've approached and say, we kind of like what you're doing, can we collaborate, can we participate, can we do things? And to all of you who want to do something, the default answer is yes. We are radically inclusive and highly open. Whatever you want to do with us that we can help, we will do. And to decentralize that, right, so that nobody has to always come to Justin and ask, except for creating accounts. You can come to this landing page, and hopefully over time it will be a plug and play system. So this is the landing page for all the core members or key collaborators of the Social Collab. So you get informed on, okay, this is the vision or whatever, and ongoing plans. So it keeps a live update on all the things that are going on. We will also document why certain decisions were made and the thinking behind it. But everything here should be constantly reviewed through this kind of democratic decision-making process. There's a background here, so if let's say you find people who say, hey, they're really interested, no need to send Justin Lee an email and ask Justin Lee to explain. You cut and paste this background, right? Hey, cut and paste, and then this whole chunk here and send it to your friend. And then they'll get a brief about what this is. As you can tell, I'm just trying to make my life easy. But of course, I'm always happy to engage one-on-one. But I think over time, I think it'd be nice if more of you did the engagement. There's some vision, mission. I think what's critical to this is, so all this is for your inputs, whoever wants to participate, right? There seems to be 2 key strategic thrusts for the Social Collab. Open to review. One is a knowledge thrust, right? So we want to robustly and constantly update the knowledge base that makes sense of all these social issues that are contributed collectively by a community of citizens, professionals, researchers, students, etc. So that's the knowledge part. So having more and more pages that are contributed to and owned by the community would be great. And that's one key thrust of it. The second one is the solutions thrust, or the solution strategy, which is, so we will mobilize diverse community assets to collaborate to address social issues. So for example, the inclusive neighborhood one, we have community artists on board, of course the social service agencies, we have civic tech groups, all interested to come and have a low stakes conversation on, okay, this is the idea. Are you interested to collaborate in any way? And then SG Assist comes along and say, oh, we've already built this platform to find volunteers to visit seniors, and maybe, you know, we can kind of extend it to people with disabilities. Great. And if the community arts group wants to do something, great. So, and depending on who you bring in, I think that's why it's important to have diverse community assets. Because with the diversity, they bring different value, and the interventions also look quite different. So we do want to not just talk about the problems and map it out, but also support the groups who want to do something about it. So the knowledge strategy broadly as it stands is, which is what makes sense for now, is that it's hard for people to come and just populate a page. So we do preliminary population of wiki pages. Once there's some stuff on social enterprise, it wouldn't be difficult for, you know, a social enterprise or some students or some expert or some practitioner to fill in the blanks or tell us what's wrong and how to shift it around. So preliminary population of pages, and then we kind of dive deeper. We do some community engagement. Maybe we find mentors. For example, in our wiki challenge, we have people populating the senior pages, but then South Foundation came to be their knowledge mentor and told them, you know, this is how things are, and you know, this is how we should define seniors. Seniors is what kind of terms are derogatory and what terms you should use and things like that. So go deeper, and then we can relook at the information, because the information tends to become unwieldy and big. And so there's this process whereby we create a navigatable knowledge base by creating the page you saw, right? The map of the issues where you click on it and it goes to the right page. I think at some point, once the information becomes too much, we kind of clean it up in that way to make it navigatable. And then we hope that a community of users or somebody will take over ownership. So Yoke is here. Yoke wants to kind of populate the migrant workers page. The migrant workers page was pre-populated before from an intern from HealthCern, so it's very construction worker centric. And it lied there dormant for 1 or 2 years, and until some other group now is saying, we want to do this. Then I say, great, please take it on. And if you can continue to update it, even better. So that's the knowledge strategy. The solution strategy is, there are groups here also who's interested in design thinking or social innovation, and I think it is in line with the spirit of the collab that we don't just talk about problems, but we also think about how to address them where we can. So we want to communicate this understanding in this landscape. So the landscape reports offer an example of how to do that. We can also have conversation with the larger sector. Now that we've mapped it out, what are the promising solutions or what are the priorities you care about? And importantly, number 3 is to mobilize or curate community assets and partners, because if you have artists or tech people in the room, the solutions change. I'm personally interested in the game designers, but I've never, and there's a group called the Serious Games Association in Singapore, but I've not met them. I don't know what they do. I don't know whether they're relevant. So I think part of the goal here also is to figure out who's out there, what interesting skill sets they have, and can we kind of bring them into the fold. Not into the fold, because just kind of bring into a collaborative relationship, because it's mutually beneficial, right? Then we'll design, conceptualize solutions and write grants for these solutions if necessary, implement and evaluate them. So some of these parts, the collab itself, depending on how equipped we are to do these things, we could just partner with others. So MVPC and kind of design thinking companies interested to do design workshops, we could just partner them. IPS itself as a policy lab looking to incubate solutions. If a concept is well cooked and IPS likes it, we could pump it towards some kind of incubation phase. So those are the 2 key strategies, and then there's the governance of it. So the governance of it, I think underlying it is some kind of decentralized or democratic decision making, and you can read about this. But the basics of it, which is I'm sharing with you here, but of course this can change, we'll discuss it, is using principles of sociocracy, which is basically you have autonomous circles or teams with jurisdiction over clearly defined domains, and then those circles can make their own decisions and take action. So maybe the knowledge team has their own circle, and the knowledge team amongst themselves can decide, okay, what should we do? Should we identify a couple of pages to populate? We'll mobilize some people to do this. We'll run 1 wikithon or 3 wikithons. Up to you. How you want to do it, up to you. You want to form sub-circles to support, you can. Let's say the knowledge teams want to form a community or student engagement sub-team so that they can go to NTU, go to SMU and approach the students there and say, do you want to do this? Up to you. For decisions that affect other circles or the functioning of the social collab at large, then governance meetings will be held and there'll be a larger governance circles. That's the basics of it. We can get into it, but that's how I'm thinking of it. I'll get your views on this. And this is some action plan we can put down. And I'm thinking if you are interested, then we can even put in all the projects that are ongoing. So as I mentioned, right, the people interested in micro-workers page are these, York and Benson. Singye is interested in mapping out Lengkok Bahru, possibly doing a wikithon on the children's pages, Amos on Northeast District mapping. Of course, we are doing the disability pages, but we're trying to approach Access Arts Hub to do an arts and disability one, to take ownership of that. The solutions part of it, there's some groups that have done the Wiki Challenge before. Zheng Jie, who just spoke, and Amy, they're trying to run a wikithon, but kind of lead into a social innovation process. Wayne is here with us, and he's trying to create a platform to provide visibility on various ground-up initiatives and kickstart solutions. And as I mentioned, MVPC and some other groups might be thinking of design thinking workshops. So, and there's a governance and backbone support. And then these are the specific tasks and wish lists we can put all down here. And once we find people who take on these things, we will upgrade it to the action plan. And so this is the start of a draft of how I'm thinking. If you want to be part of this, we'll add you into a Google group. The Google group will be where we communicate with one another. And then you can start forming the different circles, and the circles can start recruiting your own people and making decisions and acting on those decisions. Okay, so any comments or views? Oh, Yu Yan just said she made a Google form for people to send in. Oh, great. So Yu Yan, you can just, if you wanted to join the collab or get a user account, then you can click on the form, and then I will get your email and create an account for you. Okay, any reflections? Wayne, do you want to say something? Because you were interested in collaborating in some way.
Hi, yeah. Hi, Dr. Justin. Sorry, my camera is down, so I can't share
That's
my
okay.
video. Yeah, but thank you so much for sharing. I think I learned a lot from your whatever you just explained. I think one question I have, right, is more of like, how does the engagement actually take off from this wiki page? Because I think it's right now, yeah, the page is perfect for, like, collaborative sharing of knowledge, right? Everybody is, like, I guess, putting in whatever they know. But just curious, like, how does or is there anybody that is going to help to actually bring this engagement, right, from this wiki page to life? Yeah.
So I guess if there's like, for example, York is here, right? So York said, okay, her intern found the migrant workers page and said, wow, there's a platform for people to collectively contribute information about that. So why don't we consider contributing to that? Then of course, great. Then I can easily give them accounts. Now, we will support to the extent that we can. So because we are already facilitating the disability community, and that's work. We cannot help facilitate different community networks. But if York's group decide that, because it's easy, you just want to contribute, you can. But let's say you want to create an interest group or network. We can share with you our experience of doing it, but you have to be the one catalyzing, mobilizing, and facilitating the group. And I think our goal then is to, if the more self-mobilized you are, the more support we can give you. So if you form the migrant workers community network or whatever, then, you know, if you need venue, I'll try to pull my IPS strings or whatever. If you need this or need that. So but let's say you are doing LGBT and you want to do LGBT, or no, animals I found out, right, very toughy. The animal groups don't get along with each other for some reason, right? So there was some initial engagement and say, okay, let's get the animal groups together, and then they couldn't. Then I'm not going to be the ones trying to pull all the animal groups together to do this lah.
Yeah, it's quite hard for like you to oversee everything, so I understand that.
So the sex worker page, because I heard two groups, two organizations present yesterday, I just created a page and I thought, okay, for something small like this, it won't be difficult for either me, myself, or like a research assistant or an intern to just chat with them for a bit and pre-populate. So pre-populating is really easy. It's mobilizing the community to come contribute collectively. That's the hard part.
I understand. Okay, understand. Yeah, so maybe I can share a bit of like what I guess I'm trying to do, right? So yeah, I think maybe for the rest also. So I'm trying to build actually a online digital platform that actually got inspired from the Social Collab. Yeah, so basically it is a website, right? A web app, if you would. Basically, that sort of aggregates, right, whatever the community ground-ups are doing. So let's say you have a project or you have a listing, basically you can go to our platform, you upload it there. Yeah, so it's more of supporting just mainly the ground-ups. So let's say you have a project or whatsoever you're interested in either starting or joining, right? You can basically list down your initiative on the platform. Yeah, so I guess the intent of this is basically number one is to have visibility, right? So I think Dr. Justin yourself, I think Zheng Jie also mentioned about like knowing what's out there. Yeah, so the idea is that we, you know, as I guess as the third sector, right, the funds are limited, so you don't want that duplication to come through. Yeah, so I guess this is what my team and I we are trying to develop this platform. Basically, is like have a database that is for grown-ups. Yeah, because I think during COVID during COVID itself, a lot of new initiatives popped up. Right, there was this Excel sheet that was floating around, but at the same time, the Excel sheet in a sense it's very individual to individual kind of stuff, right? But in itself, it's initiative too, but not so many people know about, right, who are the people within this Excel sheet that actually needs help. So a lot of the engagement still goes, I guess, on a very individual initiative basis. Yeah, so the platform that I'm still building, it's still currently in works. Yeah, but I think why I wanted to join in this call was actually number one to ask, right, whether anyone would be interested for user testing. That's one. And next, yeah, maybe you can see how actually the platform can sort of utilize what Social Collab has already done, which is your knowledge pool, and whatever community groups that you all have to maybe onboard onto the platform when it's ready. Yeah.
That'd be great. I mean, if you can, we've done such a simple mapping of the groups that we know about, and if you can do a fancier version, we gladly will link to your page and say, don't look at this, don't look at our page, we just link to yours. So that's also the philosophy that we have for knowledge pages, that if there's no cataloging or collation of, let's say, these are the parent support groups in Singapore for this piece. So we might start the painful process of collating and then just put it somewhere there. But then we realize, oh, there's this group, this caregivers group that have collated it, or SG Enable is doing this. Then we delete everything we have because we know that they'll keep a better and more live and more updated version of that list. And so then we just link there. And we're trying, in effect, we're not competing with anybody to be the central platform. We are indexing service lah. So if you know, I suppose the philosophy is that we work, we occupy the space in between organizations and we can connect. I think we'd be happy with that. We don't, the language somehow, you know, trips people up. People always come to you and say, we want, well, it's so good that you are this centralized platform, you know, like the one-stop shop for everything, but we are not, and we don't want to be.
I understand. Thank you.
Zheng Jie, you wanna?
I guess I also want to like take the opportunity to sort of publicize what we are doing. So myself with Amy, she's also in the call. Like we are very interested and passionate about social innovation. So as Dr. Justin has mentioned, we are actually trying to do another iteration of the Wikathon to update the social collab. So I think part of our extended initiative is that we are trying to develop this social innovation platform because with such a database of information, right, there needs to be a call to action, So we also want to explore how people can be, or youths, or or people in general who are passionate about, our communities here in Singapore, how we can be empowered, to come up with some solutions or some ideas, to solve some of these needs or some of their problems they are faced in the communities here. So yeah, I mean, Amy, do you want to share a little bit more?
Yeah, hello. Yeah, so for the Wikathon that we were talking about, we've actually spoken to Singapore Polytechnic, the administration there, so that we could perhaps work closely with SB students to, like, as what Justin said, populate the pages and also have a cohesive learning experience for the students themselves. So right now we are looking for people who are interested to join as like maybe facilitators or just designing the program or like coming up with ideas to run this Wikathon. So if you're interested, I'll drop a link on the chat as well, which you can look at our website and also look at what we have in store for the Social Innovation Collective. Yes. Thanks, Justin.
Who's listened to all this and has some interest in considering joining us? You can use the whatever what's that, the reaction button if you prefer. Who has some interest? Matilda, would you like to say something? Any reflections about this?
Hi, thank you. I have been following the network for some time, but it's the first time I'm actually joining a call. So I had a look at the page, and I think it's really a wonderful resource to have, especially something that is open for all, to not just find information but also to contribute. So myself, I work in the disability sector locally, and I'm also a founder of a Ground Up. So I'm interested to connect with Wayne to see if there's any way we can also work together.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
So which Ground Up is that?
I'm from the Advocates for Refugees Singapore.
Okay.
So yeah, not necessarily a local cause per se. So I was just wondering, as well as you were speaking during your sharing, whether it kind of fits into the social collab sort of platform. Yeah, but I think there's a lot more that I can learn about, and if anything, I would definitely reach out to you.
I think it could be potentially a kind of page on disaster relief or refugee related kind of as an asset class, because there are organizations like Mercy Relief and etc. that do this kind of work overseas. So that could be it. But if you say can map out Cambodia, I think that's very hard. Cambodia should have their own collab, I think.
Thank you.
Dayanti, did you want to share something? You say you might be interested.
Hi, I'm a poly student studying psychology right now, and so we have many different projects and assignments dealing with different layers of populations and subgroups. And I'm really happy to have found out about this platform and also the initiatives from Wayne and Zheng Jie and Amy. And I think it will be really useful for us students, even though, as you have said, it's not 100% credible because it's transparent to ignorance, but I would see it as index, like the NCSS website, where I can refer to sorry to help with my assignments lah. So yeah, that's all.
Actually, it just helps if we've had other poly students say this before. They've since left poly, but I say, wow, if only there was such a page when I was in poly, I wouldn't have to search through all the MSF and CSS website just to arrive at the same set of information that
Yeah.
other students have arrived at.
Yeah. That was my thought as well.
And so actually, students as part of coursework is also going to be a useful strategy. So if any of you join the core team, right, actually one of the things we could push, and academics and lecturers have already, some of them are quite open to it already. They say, we have students all the time, and as part of their coursework, since they're doing such research, they could populate relevant parts of the wiki pages for you. And so that's benefiting the collective database, but the students also benefit because the students get access to, this is the current state of the sector as the community knows it. And so they get a sense of some ground views if they exist, etc. So I see it as mutually beneficial relationship, and some lecturers are quite open to it. And again, it's me being the bottleneck because I'm one person, so I know this person NIE and this person NUS quite open to it because they've heard this before, but I don't have time to go and talk to them and to set it up and to do the demo and to actually make it happen. So, but if there's a team doing it, that would be great. Yeah. Jermaine, you also put up your hand, I think. Did you want to say something?
Hi, yes. Actually, I just posted a question.
Okay.
I'm actually quite interested to join, mainly because I did a couple just like that. I'm a poly student, and I did a couple actually not a couple maybe two research related proposals or report, and I was actually very interested to sort of improve that aspect of myself because I think this is actually quite important, especially going to uni and forward. That's why I was actually quite interested to join, but I'm more afraid because I'm not sure what kind of commitments we might have, or we might have to dedicate ourselves to, especially we are graduating students and our work, our school load is getting quite a bit, and I don't want to promise something that I might not be able to give lah.
Yeah, which is why we wanted people to customize their own participation. So for the people who can do something ad hoc, let's say you just want to come and populate some pages and that's all you need, great, we'll just give you a user ID. We can even do a demo and you can do it at your own time. If you're more energetic and motivated like Amy and Zheng Jie, and you want to do some social innovation process that you're doing with your other organization groups anyway, then great, we will partner with you in a sustained fashion. If you want to join the core team of the Social Collab and define its vision and bring some of its plans to fruition, even that isn't as scary a commitment as you think it is. So we'll form circles, and circles, I think there'll be leads of these circles, and the leads of the circles, I think it'd be nice at least to maybe just commit to a year, maybe. I don't know what's fair, and then you can find your own replacement. Once a circle is formed, right, it is self-sustaining. You can join a circle and be a member of the circle, and you can leave anytime. So it's that's how I imagine, even if you join the core team to provide backbone support to the initiative, that's what you can do. Of course, there's the backbone, and there are all these other collaborators or partners. So, if Yoke is here, so Yoke's interested to do the migrant worker pages, and we'll support that. But if Yoke also wants to be part of the core team to drive the social collab, we welcome anybody. Actually, Yoke, do you want to say something? Any reflections? Are you still here? Okay, never mind. Does that answer your question, Jermaine?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
It gives me a better idea of what you guys expect in terms of commitment.
Yeah, I think we want like a maximum easy to plug and play and customize entirely to your own rhythms and commitment level. Since there's so few people left, why don't we go quickly around and say a few things, then we can all go home. See if people are still around. Hey, Jim C, you're here. Do you want to say something?
Yes, I'm here, but I joined late. I was with another call in preparation for this Sunday session.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So should I do a spiel on that?
Sure, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jimsy, Justin's ex-colleague. I find it very amusing that people.
For a while, people are going to say Justin's ex.
Ex-colleague. I know your wife, please. No, yeah, so everyone, if you have not signed up this Sunday at 3 o'clock, a group of us are going to talk about gender and some of the stereotypes that we have. So it's quite an open discussion. Be quite interesting. So yeah, sign up if you are interested to join us and chat about gender, the stereotypes, and how culture, affect how we perceive and behave and think, basically. Yeah. So yeah, I'm a co-organizer with Justin on this. So great job, Justin.
Anyone else want any reflections or questions about anything or anything about the larger forum at large? If not, we can actually end off, and for those who want to chat, you can stay back a bit. I'll stay around for a bit in case any of you want to chat. If not, thank you very much. You can, if you're interested, just send me an email or fill in the form. Thanks for joining us and good evening.
Hi, Dr. Justin.